Hi, this is author Richard Hooke, and as November 22nd approaches this year, I just wanted to take a moment and remember President Kennedy. So I just wanted to mention a little history and just go over it with you, a couple of interesting items. Now, when I first started researching the Kennedy assassination, actually one of my first books was 12 Shots That Shook the World. I used to put these on CD. And it's interesting that I never suspected the conclusions that I would be led to when I first started out. And I mean, now we know November 22nd, 1963, at 12:30 p.m., that Lee Harvey Oswald was watching the assassination from the first floor doorway that Book Depository, and Jackie Kennedy was shooting President Kennedy up through the head in the back seat of the car. So it's totally the opposite of what I might have suspected. At 12:30, Oswald was watching the one with a heart, and the cold-hearted killer was Jackie Kennedy, who shot him. And when I did the CD, I never even suspected. I have 313 right here with her shooting him. If you look closely, you can see it's obvious. But I never suspected it. This was my second book. I used to put these on CDs. I just wanted to show you that. I mean, it's just I never knew that was the conclusion we were going to come to. But I just wanted to mention the summer of '63 was really a unique summer for President Kennedy. I mean, all of a sudden, he really he really started to his attitudes really started to get very progressive. He started to make his move. In 1963, President Kennedy actually early that year he had a mistress, Mary Pinchot Meyer, who used to come visit him at the White House. And this is Mary's Mosaic by Peter Janney, a great book I've been going over, and made some notes here. But Mary was a very great lady, and she was a positive influence on President Kennedy. She wasn't trying to steal him away or anything. She was trying to get him to think about what truly matters. She was against war. She was for peace on earth, and she was for saving the environment. And she influenced President Kennedy in that direction. And she just might have had a lot to do. But all I know is the summer of '63, President Kennedy, he really started to make his move. I mean, it's amazing when you start looking at all that he accomplished that summer. Just one thing after another. I just wanted to mention a few of these things to you because I spent so much time on the trail of all the assassins. But the bottom line is, 1,000 years from now, these conspirators will all be forgotten. Nobody's going to remember who any of them were, but they're going to remember President Kennedy. Okay, he'll be long remembered. The conspirators, they're going to be forgotten, but President Kennedy, he'll be remembered. He'll even be discovered more. In the summer of '63, when that is researched, all of the things that he was doing then, it's just truly amazing. And I just want to mention a few of them for you. I mean, it started off on June 4th of '63. He signed the executive order to strip the Federal Reserve of its power. That was on June 4th, okay? For the United States federal government to strip the Federal Reserve Bank of its power to loan the United States federal government money to the federal government at interest. He returned to the Treasury Department the constitutional power to create and issue currency without going through the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, that's what he was doing. He was printing up $4 billion in $2 bills, 5s, 10s, and 20s were being printed while he was assassinated. And the President Kennedy's notes said United States notes on the top. Okay, it didn't say. It said United States note, not Federal Reserve note, like our money still says today. It was going to be truly our own money, and we weren't going to have to pay interest on it. They were going to be issued as interest and debt-free currency backed by silver reserves in the U.S. Treasury. That was President Kennedy's plan. They said United States notes at the top, and they had a red serial number instead of a green. But instead, his plan was never enacted. Okay, and I just want that he started off the summer with that on June 4th. Okay, then on June 10th, President Kennedy, he gave his speech at American University. This speech was one of the greatest speeches of all time. People should listen to it. I mean, really, it was really something. Okay, he was making a departure from the Cold War, and he was introducing everybody to a new era of global cooperation and coexistence, and what President Kennedy described as the greatest topic on earth, world peace. Okay, he said, I'm talking about genuine peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and to build a better life for their children. Not mere peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women, okay? And not merely peace in our time, but peace for all time. So President Kennedy was thinking far beyond his term in office. He was trying to make a positive influence on the world permanently for all time. I mean, this was very great, okay? And no other president had stepped out like this. He wasn't being controlled that summer. He was making his move, okay? He said, peace is a process, a way of solving problems. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal. Those are his words. And then President Kennedy announced he was going to end nuclear and atmospheric testing immediately and hold talks that he hoped would produce the first nuclear test ban treaty. Okay, that was all in his speech June 10th. The conclusion of his speech said, President Kennedy said, and is not peace in the last analysis basically a matter of human rights? The right to live out our lives without fear of devastation, the right to breathe air as nature provided, the right for future generations to a healthy existence? He was asking everybody to ask themselves that. Then he said, we need to safeguard our national interests, but also human interests. That's for everybody he's talking about. The elimination of war and arms is clearly in the interest of both, for all people, the elimination of war and arms. Okay? The outcome of President Kennedy's university speech was that the United States and the Soviet Union began to act like competitors for peace. This was the direction he was going. Okay, then on June 11th, 1963, okay, just 7 days later, President Kennedy, or actually this was, June 11th, the very next day after his American University speech, President Kennedy delivered a groundbreaking civil rights address, okay, in response to a successful challenge of Alabama Governor George Wallace, who had tried and failed to prevent 2 black students from registering at the University of Alabama. President Kennedy explained, there is a direct link between political equality and freedom and the attainment of world peace. Okay? That our nation is founded on the principles that all men are created equal, that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of any one are threatened. Okay? We're all in it together. He recognized that, and Mary Pinchot Meyer may have helped him get on that track, but this is what he was saying on June 11th. On June 26th, in the middle of a 10-day trip across Europe, President Kennedy addressed more than 1.5 million people in West Berlin, adjacent to the Brandenburg Gate. He said, I am a Berliner, he declared, and he told the people of the divided Germany what they needed to hear, what they wanted to hear, that all people have the right to be free, to unite their families and their nation in lasting peace with goodwill to all people. Then on July 26th, it was just one thing after another, the summer of 63 with President Kennedy. On July 26th, President Kennedy delivered an historic address on TV when he announced that a treaty to ban all nuclear tests in the atmosphere, outer space, and underwater had been concluded. And he said, this is not a victory for one side. It's a victory for mankind. A journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step, he explained. Okay, he wasn't done. Then on September 24th, 1963, okay, the U.S. Senate ratified President Kennedy's limited nuclear test ban treaty with the Soviet Union and the United Kingdom. Nikita Khrushchev signed the treaty 16 days later. President Kennedy had the world moving in the right direction of peace without war. This was in September, just 3 months before they killed him, our deep state. Okay, this great man. We should always remember President Kennedy and remember what he stood for, because it keeps hope alive. Then also in September of 1963, President Kennedy announced a plan for rapprochement with Cuba and a new plan to end the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. So he wanted to get along with Cuba and end the Vietnam War. This was in September. And he sent representatives to Vietnam to determine America's exit strategy from that war. In October 1963, Cuban UN ambassador Carlos Lechuga delivered an official message to President Kennedy that Fidel Castro desired a lasting peace with the United States. So President Kennedy was going to get along with Fidel Castro. So these are just some of the things that President Kennedy was doing in the summer of 63. It was truly, he wasn't being controlled, not like our current presidents. He stepped out on his own, and he paid the ultimate price. But we can all, the benefit is that it's all recorded. His speeches are out there. You can listen to him, and he let us know what we should be concentrating on, what's most important for all people of the earth, and not war, to come to the table, to make compromises, to get along. And anyway, I just wanted to say that. I mean, it's very evident that we were very blessed to have President Kennedy as our president for the 1,000 days that we did. Okay, he was very great. He was for the people. He was for the people. Okay, so I just wanted to say to you, tell your children, teach the true history, keep his memory alive and what he stood for. Okay, when you do that, when you keep President Kennedy's memory alive, what he stood for, you keep hope alive. It's very important. Okay, so President Kennedy was truly one for all time, one for the ages. I just wanted to say that. And so as another November 22nd, actually this year, Thanksgiving is on the same day. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Bye.